Hi, everybody. It's Chris Lipper from On the Bus Sales Training, Coaching, Consulting, and I am sitting down with an old friend of mine, Julbert Abraham, who has been on the bus for the last 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
and has become a friend. The best wedding I ever went to was Julbert Abraham's wedding, and it was a Zoom wedding this year, and I loved it. It was everything you wanted it to be. It was emotional. It was funny. It was great. And congratulations again on that. And
Thank you for attending.
no, it was terrific. I tell everyone. All right, so let's talk a little bit. So
Hmm.
we met, let's call it 5 years ago,
Yeah.
and you became an on the bus member. Do you remember what those early days were like for you and your business?
Yeah. So I'll give you a little background. We met through the chamber. I went to one meeting and I keep hearing your name and I'm like, who is this guy? I want to meet him. And then, we met. You had a session. I attended the coaching peer-to-peer session you had. And at the end, you wanted me to join, and I'm like, I took your card, but didn't get back to you. And a couple weeks went by. I got an email from you saying, hey, I see your card. Is this something you want to do, or should I throw your card in the trash? And I'm like, this guy is bum. you know so that really grabbed my attention. Then we had a follow-up meeting and I decided to get on board with the program. It was one of the best experience as a upcoming entrepreneur because it put me around people that were doing what I want to do. At the time, my business, I just started. I wasn't even in the six figures yet. And just being in a room with a bunch of other people that were doing over six figures in their business really helped in terms of mindset.
And I remember when you came in, you speak beautifully. You did then, you do now, you present wonderfully. And anybody who needs help with LinkedIn should be using Gilbert. And he's the only one I recommend for this stuff. And I'm not just saying that because he's sitting here. I would tell you that behind his back too. But when you came to us, you were very dead set on being the LinkedIn guy. And I
Yeah,
remember you were always the LinkedIn guy. Every podium you were introduced to, you were always the LinkedIn guy. And there was a little bit of a struggle we had when I wanted you to change your name or your persona because I wanted you to be sellable at the end, because
yeah,
it was part of the vision. And how can you sell it if you're the LinkedIn guy, singular?
exactly.
Um,
It's interesting you said that because that helps shift my mindset. I think one of the big things that I've gotten by being a member is the mindset shift. Well, the personal branding is amazing to start. However, as you grow the business, it's harder to scale. And because it's harder to scale, it's also harder to sell.
and the
So
less of you, the more it's worth, right? You've
yeah,
done
yeah,
that. So,
exactly. That's one
and
thing
you've
I've,
gotten into managing systems instead of people, and
yeah,
all these things have come to fruition for you.
yes, and it's been a interesting and fun ride where I learn a lot. I've gone through a lot of different stages in the business where sometimes in the beginning I remember, I just wanted to be around people that's doing well so I can learn from them. And to having a shift of mind where I end up hiring my first employee. I grew the team where we had, 5 people, 10 people. So that scalability happened because of all the advice that I always get, in your program. Uh, like for example, one of the members was like, if you want your bit to sell your business, you got to have a team that can help you put the systems in place. you
Mhm.
know and one of my fear was hiring. Yeah, I was
It
so
wasn't even
scared.
hiring, it was interviewing. You didn't even
Yeah.
interview.
I didn't even want to do that, and you told me, just start doing it. Stop thinking about this.
Right.
And I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through the same challenges, and we're like, oh my God, where's the money gonna come from? What's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen there? Instead of just putting ourselves out there and take those first steps.
Yeah, and I always tell people, most of the owners I work with, we have a behavioral goal of doing at least one interview a month.
Yeah.
We always should know what kind of talent's out there, and we never know when we're going to lose someone. And it's good practice, and it's one more person who knows what we do.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying hire someone once a month, but absolutely interview someone at once a month at any size.
I agree. I mean, having talent around you make your job easier because when that opportunity come in, you're not going crazy like, oh my God, I need to
Right.
find somebody tomorrow. You can pick up the phone and say, hey, we have an opportunity. Are you interested? And that's what happened to one of the team members I have is I had to pick up the phone and just sat down with her and say, hey, here's the opportunity. Is this something you're interested? She jumped on it right away.
Okay, that's wonderful. Do you remember any of your other early challenges or early pivots that you might have made?
A few. um, the vision of the business change. As time changes, my vision change. Like you have overall high level vision, and then you have, kind of like that funnel in terms of the different part of the business, how you want it to look. So at certain point, I wanted to have, 100 of salespeople,
Right.
reaching out to people. I had those crazy ideas in terms of products and pricing.
Yep.
And sometimes I had to be brought back to earth in terms of, how does that gonna actually look like? What's the operational systems gonna be set for this to work? So that that those challenges in terms of coming up with clarity on what you want really help your business grow.
So one of the things you really led the way with, at least for me, and I've apologized to you for this before, that you were the first I knew to really use the virtual platform well, and your product became international very quickly.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand it. I didn't see it. I wasn't going to say no, no, no. But I remember that, we live, let's say 40 minutes apart, something like that, or our offices are 40 minutes apart. And we would meet once a month for a one-to-one. And
Mhm.
I would always insist that we do it in person. And you would want to do it virtually. And then you would truck out to my place. We'd have our hour together. You would truck back. And, again, I apologize here publicly. You were right. I was wrong. This virtual platform is amazing. And what you've done with it, with the head start that you have, and thank you for leading me there. Um,
Well, thank you for listening.
because before we even went into pandemic mode, we were already going virtual.
Yeah.
And it was partially due to your success and seeing how well it was working for you and some of the other people around me. So thank you for that. And that's
Absolutely.
part of being an entrepreneur, right? Is we get a vision, we may not understand it, but we take a shot.
Yeah.
I always tell our owners that you're unemployable in a good way because you're never going to want to ask permission, and that
Yeah.
would be an example, right?
I agree 100%. I think you know, by not knowing all the steps and just taking that first step, right? Like you said, a journey of 1,000 miles start with the first
First
step.
step, right?
So just taking that first step puts you in a good place. I think something else that I love in your group is the ability to learn from each other because some mistakes I don't necessarily have to make to learn from it. I can see someone else making it, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this.
I had that talk with someone this week. Think of all the mistakes you don't have to make. We've all made them for you.
There you go, and that's extremely helpful because it also help put more clarity into your vision and your business. It's also a big motivator because if you're in a room and everybody else is performing, you end up performing, right? So when I first started, you put me in that room with a bunch of guys that were doing over 6 figures in their business. It forces me to have a different mindset and grow my business past 6 figures.
Right.
So it's good seeing that, and I think the caliber of people that you have that you bring on board is amazing for all of us because we all learning from each other. And you'll be shocked, the guy doing 7, 8 figures and the mistakes they're making. You're like, wait a second,
Right.
I can learn from that too.
And one of the keys is whenever I bring on a new client, a new member, as I like to call them, I always want them to be teachable and vulnerable and coachable
Yeah,
and not know-it-alls.
yeah.
And so that they may look at someone doing 100 grand and they're doing 10 million and be like, well, what's this guy going to tell me? Well, a lot.
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes owners can, or people that sell, or whoever it is, can leave the basics. And we need to
Yeah.
get back to the basics sometimes. And there's a great line: if you don't leave the basics, you never have to go back to them. And I think part of what we do is can keep people grounded. So you've made some recent shifts also. Or were there any other things you wanted to bring up from the
Um,
early days?
one thing, like over the years, we had a more agency model where we had all these employees. Then we shift from that. Now we all virtual, and we have an online program with group coaching, which is a more scalable model. And it's interesting how the business is like a sculpture where we're scoping it as we go, and it's turning into its own thing. So now we have a more scalable machine that's extremely lean, where we don't need 10, 15 people to work for us to run it. And it could be very efficient at the same time.
So one of the things that I've seen you do recently, and I'm just going to piggyback on what you've said, is that we used to have a mock board meeting or a test drive where people
Yeah.
could come in and try our model, and it worked very well. And I left the basics and started meeting with people individually instead of
Mhm.
inviting them to this, and it was kind of a mistake, and we're getting back to that. But you've also adapted a similar program where instead of having 40 or 50 one-to-ones a month,
Yeah.
individual, you're doing groups,
Yeah.
and it's such an efficient way, and it's better for the clients.
Get
It's
to
a
learn
better,
from each other.
right. And not just that, and what they can do is come back and say, you know what, I tried what you said last week and it worked. So we do get not just accountability and learning from mistakes, but we hear the success stories. So
Definitely.
good for you, and I'm glad that program's continuing to grow. What is that program all about? You want to describe it a little? And
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a program called the Accelerator. It's a training and coaching and learning program that specializes on helping owners and sales professional use LinkedIn better. And they go through the program where they spend 4 weeks learning online, taking our courses, log into our portal, and then they have access to our group sessions once a week where they can learn from each other, learn from me, ask their questions, get their answers, and go and apply what they learned. So that's the program. It's an amazing way if you see LinkedIn as a tool that you want to take to grow your business to the next level.
And one of the conversations we've had that I'm going to win at some point is I'm encouraging you to also have maybe a quarterly or a yearly networking group with all the people where they
Yeah.
can come together, not in a classroom setting, and really network with each other. Because I'm sure you've got some really interesting people in these groups that wouldn't meet each other otherwise.
Yeah, yeah, and you'd be shocked. When we have our group session, we had two folks that do similar things, but didn't realize how they can help one another.
Yep.
And we also have two folks that do different things that found themselves into the group, and that's putting projects together now. So it's that synergy. It goes beyond just learning about LinkedIn. It can grow your business, but it's those connections with different folks. So that annual event is definitely something I'm still thinking about it. So we'll see when we get there, but
Okay.
it's something that I'm looking into.
And I hope we'll do a combined effort of some type with that, and we'll figure that out. So,
Yeah.
a couple of last questions, and this is unscripted just for anyone who's watching this. But what do you think it would have costed you to have not gotten on the bus?
Um, well, I could tell you hundreds of thousands of dollars, um, because the value that I have gotten over the years from learning from my mistakes, other owners' mistakes, has been really helpful in terms of creating clarity and growing my business.
And what do you think some of the best takeaways you've gotten have been?
Hiring properly, interviewing first, having that job description done, The challenges when it comes to having a strong vision and having clarity within your vision, that's been very helpful in terms of creating a routine for yourself. And because I think sometimes we get so lost in what we're doing that we don't systemize
Mhm.
our processes. So all these has helped me a lot in my business.
Okay, and then I've got one last question, but I'll just see, is there anything else you want to say before I ask the last question?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, my last question is, would you recommend On the Bus to entrepreneurs of any size and people that sell of any size?
Absolutely. If you want to grow your business, if you're looking to get around amazing people, and if you want to take it to the next level, get on the bus.
All right. Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you.
You're a lot of fun. Thank you.